So in this problem, we're dealing with integers and order of operations. Um, remember, when you're talking about order of operations, you have please, parentheses, excuse for exponents, my multiply. Well, I like to actually, sometimes a lot easier to put multiply and divide together, because whatever happens in the problem, that's what you do first. You can either multiply first or divide first, whichever comes first. Aunt Sally is the same way. You can add first or subtract first, whichever happens first in the problem. So in this case, we have 4 plus 7. And I'm going to do my parentheses first. Times, when a number is next to parentheses, that's multiply, times negative 4 minus 12. Now, let's say I go shopping with my credit card, okay? Credit card would be the best example to use for this, because you spend money you don't have. So, let's say I go shopping with my credit card, and I spend $4. My credit card now has negative 4. I owe them $4. I owe the credit card company $4. Now I'm going to spend $12 more at the restaurant. So I've now spent $4, and now I'm going to spend $12 more. I now owe them $16. So I have a negative 16. So if you think about that analogy, you owe $4, you spend $12, now you owe 16. So if you think about it, a negative minus a negative is basically you're adding the two numbers together, and the answer is going to be negative. So the answer would be negative 16, because I took two negatives. I had a negative, and now I even added more to it, so that's negative 16. And then I have a negative 2 times 5. A negative times a positive is negative. A negative times a negative is positive. In this case, I have a negative times a positive, which would make my answer negative. So 2 times 5 is 10. But I had a negative, one negative, so the answer is going to be negative 10. Okay, in the order of operations, so I've multiplied, but I still have one multiplication problem left. 7 times negative 16. And I've already told you that a positive, which will be my 7, times a negative, which will be my 16, the answer is going to be negative. So I do 7 times 16. $112. So now I can get rid of this, because we know that 7 times negative 16 is negative 112. Now, well, I can leave that there, but I'm not going to. It gets too confusing. So we have 4 plus a negative 112, or 4 minus 112. It's the same thing. In this case, you look at your biggest number, which is 112. It's negative. If I have a positive minus a negative, I subtract. But the sign is going to reflect the biggest number. So in this case, 112 is my largest number, and it just happens to be negative. So my answer is going to be negative. So 112 minus 4 is 108. 8, but my answer was negative because 112 was negative. Okay? So now we have 108 negative 108 over 10, and we divide. So, because this sign right here, well, this sign right there, is division, because every fraction is a division problem. The top number goes on the inside, the bottom number goes on the outside. The two negatives cancel each other out. So, a negative times a negative is positive. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. I know this is kind of confusing, but you'll get used to it. Okay, so 108 divided by 10. So my answer is 10 and 8/10. And if I reduce it, it's 10 and 4/5.